Hello everyone, Rob Guest from football.london here, and welcome to the latest episode of Gold Guest Talk Tottenham, sponsored by NordVPN. Joining me as ever, it's Alasdair Gold. You well?
Yeah, on the whole, hope you are well. I say on the whole because we had a media football tournament last night with a few different media organisations, and I'm a bit battered and bruised and pulled groin muscles and toe that looks a little bit iffy. But other than that, absolutely fine and able to record a podcast.
Yeah, I think we probably thought earlier in the week the second podcast this week would be, fairly quiet, not so much to talk about, but classic Tottenham, plenty to discuss as ever, including a surprise new signing. I think a signing that has taken everyone quite literally by surprise. Nobody was expecting it when the news dropped at 10:30 on Friday morning. Spurs have signed Wilson Odobert from Burnley. He joined the Clarets last year from, I think, Troyes in France. Decent first season at Turf Moor. Played for Burnley on the opening weekend of the season, Monday evening at Luton, and scored. And yeah, 25 million plus 5 million in add-ons. What did you make of the deal? Because, I mean, we were on a team meeting at the time it happened. Literally, no one was expecting it.
No, I mean, to be fair, there was a journalist, I can't remember where they're from, about 15 minutes maybe before it kind of was announced, came out with it. His name just absolutely escaped my head, which is very wrong because, to be fair to them, they were the only person I saw with anything before it happened. Yeah, it just came out the blue. I was still kind of scrabbling around trying to find out bits and pieces about it and if there was anything to it. And lo and behold, bang, it's there, announced by Spurs. And yeah, to have no kind of leaks at all about it from any side of it either shows how quickly it moved or just how much more quieter Spurs can be in the transfer market since Johan Lang took over as pushing through transfers and stuff. And we've said this before, the Paratici way was very showy, very loud, and you knew the million different targets that Spurs could potentially be looking at. But under Johan Lang, it's definitely different, and this feels like one of the biggest indicators of like a data-led signing when you look at everything around Wilson Odobert. Very talented young player. Again, another young player, another teenager this summer. Is that 4 new teenage arrivals this summer, if you could include Yang Min-hyuk, who obviously won't be there till January.
Yeah, and Solanke and Werner, the overage
old men,
ones, shall we say?
Yeah. I mean, it's a different way of going about it. It's maybe more like something like Spurs used to do. They used to kind of collect these big groups of young, talented players, and it feels like they've gone back to that. Yeah, a few Burnley fans that have kind of heard from since are absolutely gutted. They really feel he's going to be a bit of a star. I saw the stat, which I'm sure most people have done now, having kind of done their deep diving into what he's about. Most successful dribbles for a teenager in the Premier League last season. 4th highest of teenagers in Europe's 5 major leagues. He is clearly someone that is going to beat his man. And yeah, he's very young. He's 19 in November. So I think the contract's till 2029. Would you make it a shirt number 28?
Well, hopefully he fares better than the last Frenchman to wear the shirt, and that was Tanguy Ndombele, who's obviously moved on now. So yeah, I think it's a decent deal. I don't really know too much about him because, I mean, Burnley signed quite a lot of young players over the past couple of seasons when Vincent Kompany's been there, but looking at his numbers and the amount of minutes he played, he was a regular in the team. And I mean, it was always going to be difficult for him going into Burnley last, season, first year in the Premier League, a team who was struggling, really struggling at the foot of the Premier League table as well. So for him to come in, I think it was 4 goals in all competitions in 33 games, started well in the Championship this season. I think showed everyone a bit of what he's about with that goal against Luton, just with his blistering pace to, just breeze past the Luton backline and then calmly score. I think it's a decent signing. And looking at what Vincent Kompany said about him, he actually said this was in May. He didn't really want to basically, give his true feelings on Odobert, because then I think he was basically saying then he'd probably give him like sky high expectations. So he quite clearly rates him. Didn't want to, let on just how good he is, but he definitely thinks he's an excellent player in there, and could be at Spurs now, where Ange brings the very best out of him.
Yeah, he's certainly versatile. That's what we seems to be the profile of Spurs players now, is that they can play in various positions. Looked like he played the bulk of last season, or certainly a fair few games on the left last season, and a few on the right as well. Occasionally up top, it seems, in moments. And now this season, starting in more of a central attacking role, a central midfield role, attacking midfield. It's one of those where, look, I can see both ways that people are going to look at it. I think some people are going to look at it and say it's not a big marquee style signing. It's absolutely not cheap though. 30 million package is not a cheap kind of like a punt on a young player. That's quite a bit of money to put into someone. That shows a certain degree of belief that you think he's going to be something special. However, the other side I would also say it is I'm sure we would have said this on the podcast. I'm sure Spurs fans would have said it as well. A couple of years back, we were probably all looking at the likes of people like Brighton and thinking, how do they get these terrific young players? And how do they bring them in and they become stars? Why aren't Spurs signing these young players? Spurs are now. That's very much what they're doing. They were competing for Bergvall with Barcelona and various players that they're kind of competing, like Bayern and Dragishin as well. And they've clearly have kept this very kind of hushed and under the radar, got it through, and literally just as we're doing this, Spurs have announced Dominic Solanke's shirt number. He will be wearing the number 19. Dominic Solanke.
Knew it take on that's it. Obviously got a number 9. Strikers like that, even if they can't be number 9, some up for 19, 29, 39. So no surprise there.
Yeah, and sometimes they look at 19 as 10, don't they? 9 plus 1. I know some players do that when they take that. That's interesting. That is interesting. I wondered whether he might wait around for the 18, because I know he was a big Defoe fan when he was young. I wonder whether he would see whether Gio, but then I guess you're getting so close to the first game. I don't think you want to mess around fans who might want to buy that shirt and the number and all of that.
The Lo Celso?
Lo Celso fan. I'm sure there's a few Lo Celso shirts I've seen over the last couple of seasons. But back to Odobert. That's the data certainly kind of leads towards him being a very good player potentially going forward, and also it's got Premier League experience. That's another side to it. It isn't just signing a 19-year-old from straight from Ligue 1 and bringing him in. He is a player that's had a full season of Premier League experience. Like you say as well, I don't think you can always kind of I think people can overrate when someone has been in a struggling team. They kind of look at that and go like, I don't know, what did he score 4 goals last season? They might look at that and think, only 4 goals, that's not a real kind of threat. But you've kind of got to take out of that he's 19 years old, first season in the Premier League, kind of became a regular for much of the season really as it went on. And like you say, which is I think is the most important thing, playing in a real struggling team down the bottom, who were trying to fight and scrap for everything. And I think that experience of fighting and scrapping will serve him well. And he's a guy that is clearly not going to start matches to begin with, but is with the European games, the Carabao Cup matches as well, FA Cup, everything. He's going to have his chance to kind of push his claims. Question for you. What does it mean for Manor Solomon?
I thought you were going to say, what does it mean for the European numbers and that?
We'll talk about that in a minute.
For Solomon, I think it means he's on his way out this month. I think we've seen it in pre-season. In the last 3 pre-season games, he's not even got on the pitch at all. Now Odebert's going to be ahead of him in the pecking order as well. Mikey Moore is. He's just not going to get the football he wants regularly at Tottenham, and this is a season where he needs to be playing, because it's really the past 18 months plus where he's barely featured at all because of injuries. It was 6 appearances in total for Spurs last season. Not played a competitive game since the end of September. So he needs to be playing elsewhere. So I imagine he'll be one of those moving out of the door before the end of the month.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if we see a loan with an option to buy for Manor Solomon, because I think because of his injury woes over the last year or so, I would be stunned if someone comes in and says, let's buy him, we'll take him off your hands. Whereas I think it's more likely that someone takes him on a loan, looks at him for 6 months to a year, and then decides on a potential transfer. So, yeah, it hasn't worked out for him. Unfortunate, of course, training ground injury. There's nothing, you can do. I think it was a non-contact one as well, if I remember correctly. But yeah, the sheer volume of players now coming in that can play in the positions that he plays in, especially when you get someone like Odobert that can play on both wings. And it's interesting that they've used Mikey Moore a lot on the right in pre-season, which has not been his normal role. I wonder whether that, with this in mind, with Odobert playing more as a lefty over the course of last season, and also I guess he's another potential player in the Madison, Bergvall, Kulusevski role. I'm intrigued to see what Kulusevski's role is going to be this season. I'm starting to get more of a feeling we might see him more centrally than we do on the wings. I think he might start the season maybe on the wing, but I do wonder. What do you reckon with Kulusevski?
He's better central. We've seen that when he has been operating in those middle areas, especially in pre-season, and that was even before he was pushed up front for the vast majority of it. I think he's good out wide, but in an Ange Postecoglou team, he wants plays with pace to get down to the touchline and fire the balls, and that's not exactly his game, because he doesn't have the pace such as what Son and Brennan Johnson has, and Kulusevski does like to cut inside and then work from there. So I think he's better in those central areas, and I think if you are going to have him operating in the middle, then maybe it gives James Maddison a bit of a kick up the backside, really, to try and get back to his very best, because Lucas Bergvall's made a big impression so far this summer. He's someone else who can operate, in that attacking midfield area. So I think the good thing for Ange is he's just got options galore across the pitch. And I think for Mikey Moore, that's only going to benefit his game playing from the right as well. I mean, you're not really going to see, a young 16-year-old coming into the team and he's always played on the left, and then you go, right, Sonny, you're going over to the right now. We want Mikey Moore on the left. It just doesn't happen like that, does it? No. So I think it's only going to work in Mikey Moore's favour that he can play on the right as well. And just those options, it's really good, especially when there's going to be so much football on the calendar this year with the Europa League coming up.
Yeah, and Jan Min-hyuk as well in January coming in as well, another winger. There are so many there. There's abundance of kind of young, talented players all kind of bustling now for these roles. I was just looking back at the 19 as well for Solanke. I forgot Cesc had it. Of course he did. Yeah, it was Moussa. I kind of just associate it with Moussa Dembele, but of course Cesc did have it as well. Do you know who had it before Dembele? Just for you.
What season are we talking then? Like 11, 12?
09, 10 to 11, 12. I'll give you a clue.
Lewis Holtby?
No, centre back.
I have no idea.
Sebastian Basson. Adel Taarabt before that. The great Andy Reid as well.
Yeah.
No, it goes back. Callum Davenport, Chris Armstrong, Andy Booth, John Scales, Mauricio Taricco, Paul McVeigh, Kevin Scott, and Kevin Watson. There you go. There's in the Premier League era. The other thing I was going to say about the whole announcement as well, do you kind of feel it caught even like the people at the club off guard? Because there was no like teaser little thing that they like to do for new signings. It was very much just announced. Thus far, while we're recording this, a couple of hours after it was announced, there's been no like first words or anything. I had looked on even on his Instagram, and the only indication that he was now a Spurs player was that he'd changed at the top of his bio, said Spurs official on it. That was it.
Yeah,
do you think it kind of caught everyone off guard?
Yeah, because usually when Spurs do announce a player, a few minutes before there will be, like you say, that teaser, and that just wasn't the case. It was very much like a typical Johan Lang signing, because I've said on the podcast a number of times, when he was at Villa, they had, new players coming in, and there was just no talk of deals happening. I can remember Ross Barkley going on loan to Villa from Chelsea, and then who else? Callum Chambers. That might have been after Lang arrived there, but Danny Ings as well. That was another one what just came out from nowhere. So, yeah, maybe over the next few days we'll see Odobert's first words on his move to Spurs. Yeah, he's just a bit like he's just come from absolutely nowhere. It's just come as a complete shock to everyone, and I don't know if he'll be involved against Leicester on Monday. He'd probably say no, just because of no training.
But do you think they rushed it through? Maybe that's why, because it was before 12 o'clock. It seemed to have been done by.
As long as it's before the deadline, then Ange can name him in the squad if he wishes, and that option's there. But I'd probably say, Richarlison's return to training, so he'll be an attacking option. One of You'd probably assume Brennan Johnson on the bench if Kulusevski's on the right.
And
Werner, they're your attacking options. It's like I said, it's an option there now if he wants to include
that bench is going to be a nightmare for some of those players, because I mean, it's good. Don't get me wrong, it's a great thing. I think that's the competition and everything they need. But wow, there are going to be some very good players left on that bench. And the problem is, I think, in the next couple of weeks, there's going to be that crucial period where there's going to be players thinking, well, I'm not having a season of this. And they'll be pushing for exit. This is why I do think we'll have some sudden, unexpected, maybe people head out the door, because they'll suddenly find that they're not getting these, or they're not looking like they're about to get the minutes. Because the trouble is the Europa League fixtures don't kick in, and all the extra games don't kick in until next month. So it gives a little false impression of where the amount of minutes are going to come from for you, I guess. But it's a very interesting addition. I think you and I are going to do a lot more kind of diving and delving into what he's like. Speak to some people that have worked with him as well. But just on the face of it and looking at the stats, as that's kind of mostly what we can go on, and just seeing the odd bits and pieces of him over last season. I can understand the logic behind it, but I do think there's also going to be that narrative of, but he's a teenager, more unproven, not this kind of superstar that we wanted. But then, I don't know, maybe that fits an Ange team a little bit better.
Yeah, just going back to what you said previously about the subs bench, I did a piece the other day on what Tottenham's bench could potentially look like for the Leicester game, and I had like a question mark over Jed Spence, because Archie Gray can operate as a right back. So then that would allow you to have an extra attacking option on there if you wanted.
That's true. I mean, I guess you got Ben Davies can cover the left for Destiny as well. Yeah, again, and that's going to be interesting. How does Jed kind of cope with that? Suddenly thinking that he's part of things, which he is. It seems to be the case. He's going to be part of the squad this season. And Postecoglou has been very impressed with him. But spot on, the first few games, he may not be in the squad. And I can imagine the fan reaction is going to be all like, oh, what was the point? And he should be on there instead of Ben Davies or whatever. But I mean, it may be. No, I think probably Ben Davies is going to be there ahead of him, isn't he, for the experience, I would imagine. But it will just be, I'm hoping that he will have been told, Jed, if that is the case, don't worry, these next couple of weeks, that might be what it's like, but you keep pushing and you're going to get game time in Europe. You've got Carabao Cup, everything's coming. We're going to get you game time. I'd hope that's the way it's seen, because he's been, excellent from everything we understand, attitude-wise and everything, and you just don't want anything to shake that. Actually, there's some more and stuff on Jed coming out on, I think it's Saturday night, if I remember correctly, some little bits and pieces from the press conference. Talking of press conference, actually, we should probably mention the homegrown player stuff and the foreign player stuff, because I put the question to him. I think definitely the answer was the surest indication that either Ange Postecoglou listens to Gold Guest Talk Tottenham or has seen the odd tweet or story or whatever we've put out on football.london, because I asked him, I said, like, about, you've got to register, you've got the Europa League squad. I think it's 3rd of September it's got to be done by. And there's so many players that are not going to be able to be fitted into it. You're going to have to make a lot of decisions there. And he said straight off the bat, I think you spend far more time trying to work that out than I do, mate. And he's like, how do you know that? How do you know that? Maybe he does listen. I'd imagine he's probably just being told. But I do think he's one of those that, despite having this kind of, I don't go on social media, I think he keeps a little eye on what's kind of happening across things. I do think he does. I'll give you the rest of the quote just so we can kind of use it. I think we'll be fine. We have enough players to play. He kind of said that in a joking way, like, we have enough players to play. With those things, if you get caught up in numbers, the idea is to have a strong enough squad to compete in everything we want to. You do have to balance it off, but with the squad we have at the moment and balance off what we're trying to do, I still feel we're in a good place to be able to field a strong team and abide by the guidelines. They do, but they're still going to have to leave a load out. I do, because my question was something like, is it something that you've kind of got on your mind now when you're thinking about transfers and what players might leave, or is it just a bridge you'll cross when you come to it later in the month kind of thing? And that was why he kind of made out that, yeah, it's something that I'm probably in yourself a little bit more obsessed with than he is, but it's got to abide by it, hasn't he?
Oh, very much so, because we've seen in previous years, Pochettino having to leave out, was it 1-5? Vincent Janssen, I think, was Lamella out of it at one point as well.
When he was injured,
when he was injured, and then Joe Rodon not getting in under Jose Mourinho. So, yeah, you've got to abide by them. And as we said on the last podcast, what complicates things is the UEFA interpretation of the rules is different to the Premier League. And that's certainly something what's going to impact Spurs this year, especially when you're signing the likes of Archie Gray, Lucas Bergvall, and now Odobert, who can be classed as under 21 players in the Premier League, but they can't be in UEFA competition because they've not done the 2 years at the club already. So,
well, this is it, isn't it? The day after asking him the question, they've actually made it worse.
Yeah. But there's still 2 weeks to go till transfer deadline day. So, yeah, still plenty of time for outgoings or maybe even more incomings to complicate matters even more.
Well, yeah, because, I mean, when we spoke about it in the last pod, we were already looking at leaving. I think Lo Celso and Reguilon leaving. We were thinking about Manor Solomon potentially leaving. And now he's already been replaced in a way. And maybe Fraser Forster not getting a spot in the Europa League squad. And that was without new signings, just to try and balance it off. And they've already signed another one. So, yeah, I get it. I get it's a thing that as a manager, you don't want the club to be too wary of, because you kind of just like, you want quality, you want new signings in. I get it. But I do think they're going to have a few headaches. I've had some people sometimes say to me when we do a homegrown foreign player story, they're like, why is it only Spurs? Why do we never hear this about other clubs? And it's like, that they have these problems. I mean, Chelsea are going to have to leave out probably an entire team worth of players. I think it's ridiculous. And also, we don't really concentrate on other clubs, so we don't really know. I don't think people probably are looking up stories about how Brentford are going to fit in with any kind of squad regulations, or even Villa, I suppose, for the Champions League.
It's probably better for Chelsea just not to qualify for Europe, just so they can avoid this complete headache.
No, they're playing soon, aren't they, as well? They've got like an early game coming.
Yeah, they've got a playoff game against Servette, who were from Geneva in Switzerland. So, yeah, I mean, no guarantees they even get through that, because, I mean, Spurs had to do that when they were in the Conference League. Passos de Ferreira. You were in Portugal.
I remember it well. I had to go, and it was just when things were starting to kind of open up after COVID slightly. And I was like the only English journalist that went there. We're all in masks in the press conference. It was the first press conference I think I'd done in like 6 months in person. Nuno looked at me absolutely like, what are you doing here? Oh, no. Oh, the Nuno days. Oh my goodness. Thanks for bringing that back into my head.
Yeah, just on Europe for next season,
Yeah.
the draw takes place 2 weeks today, around
Nice.
Friday lunchtime. 4 more teams are confirmed in the league phase. There's Rangers, FC20, Fenerbahce, so the potential of a Jose Mourinho reunion. And then
Oh, my
there's
word.
Union Saint-Gilloise of Belgium as well there in it. Right, halfway stage of the pod. So, Ali, do you want to let everyone know about the benefits of using NordVPN?
Of course, yeah. People will know by now that over this summer I've been using Nord a lot because of Spurs being on tour, being on the other side of the world. Nord were very, very helpful to be able to log my devices into thinking they were back home in the UK, and and able to access shows and things that I would normally be able to watch back home, or even actually, as I was mentioned on the last pod, very helpful to access Spurs play. So I had some replays during some games where we didn't have replay screens. It's a terrific service. You don't even just have to use it for using your device for stuff back in the UK. You can use it in the UK for stuff abroad. You might want to book a flight and you can get it at a cheaper price, perhaps if you book it from the destination country. Or you can maybe book various streaming services, things like that, as if they're from that country, register for them there. NordVPN is the fastest VPN in the world. It means no buffering, no lagging, and you can stream your favorite shows from anywhere in the world without that bandwidth throttling, which is quite an important thing. It's been something I've used a lot, which is why I can easily promote it with utter sincerity, because it has been very helpful to me over the years, and it is a great service. It's also very good for keeping your devices that little bit more locked up when you're having to use public Wi-Fi, which can be a little bit iffy, people trying to get into your stuff. And also, because of the Gold Guest Talk Tottenham affiliation that we have with Nord, you can get a great discount off your NordVPN plan if you go to this link, which is nordvpn.com/goldguest. Our link will also give you 4 extra months on a 2-year plan, and there's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. And if you miss that URL, the link is in the podcast episode description box.
Right, a few more things to talk about from yesterday's press conference. The headline news, Ange stating that Yves Bissouma is suspended for the first game of the season away at Leicester following that incident the other day where he was appeared to be inhaling laughing gas from a balloon and then, for whatever reason, decided to post it all over his social channels. Not the greatest of ideas, but, you know, that's resulted in a internal ban from the first game of the season. So that's going to leave Ange and Spurs with decisions to make in midfield. Potentially now see Archie Gray maybe even make his Premier League debut, or Rodrigo Benson come in for a start after a decent showing against Bayern last week. But for you, right call on Bissouma, 1 match ban?
I think they got it spot on.
Yeah.
I thought the whole way Postecoglou spoke about it yesterday was excellent. I thought it was really good. Dealt with it in the exact way it needs to be dealt with, because, you know, I wrote a piece on it earlier in the week. There was this big thing last year about Bissouma, Postecoglou asking him to be an example for the young players. It was like, of all the things to then do, it's just like it's a terrible example for the rest of the younger squad. And this is one of your key kind of experienced players as well, and he's doing something like that. There's some debate over whether the videos were uploaded publicly or were uploaded to some kind of private group that were then shared. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter. It's just still the same stupid daft thing to do in the first place. And I think I mentioned it on the last pod, but there is this kind of maybe it's because we'd be so grateful ourselves to be professional footballers. It could be an element of that. But I always look at the people like the Kanes and the Ronaldos and the Messis, and the way that they treat their bodies and the way that they know they have to sacrifice so much and be these ultra athletes, essentially, and they become the best because of it. And you kind of look at other players that do things and you just think, why? Why would you do anything that might impair you in any slight way from being the best possible athlete you can be? I know there's other factors in these things and other influences and things like that, but I just find it a bit mad, and especially when you're a player that's supposed to be a bit of a driving force within this system and this club and everything. And I really think he's stuffed himself. I really do. I think this could have longer reaching consequences for Bissouma. I mean, Postecoglou was very clear. He's lost his trust. He's lost the manager's trust. He's lost the trust of his teammates as well. So, you know, while this might not be such a big thing for Bissouma, he might try and brush it off. He has apologized apparently to the group. But yeah, this does not feel like he's going to get straight back into this team after this match. I think he's got a lot of work to do. And who knows? You know, we were talking just a little while ago about potential unexpected departures. You never know now. If Bissouma, if suddenly a bid came in, Spurs might decide, well, you know, if he's going to do stuff like that and he's not going to be the kind of player that we need him to be, is it worth the hassle kind of thing? It's so stupid. And yeah, I'm intrigued to see now who comes in. I think there's so many potential options, really. Bentancur looked sharp in the last game, albeit with only 45 minutes, but then it hasn't been that long since the Copa America. Archie Gray's probably played the most minutes of pre-season. I think he'll be the sharpest of the bunch, and he is someone that they're looking to get into that first team as regularly and quickly as possible because they know he's going to be a bit of a superstar. And I mean, what would you go for midfield-wise? What would the three be?
Well, I think I said on the previous pod, personally, I'd go Bentancur, Sarr and Kulusevski. I'd probably still stick with that, but I can see him, you know, putting Gray in. I don't think he'd have any qualms at all about starting Gray or even Lucas Bergvall if he thought he was up to it. Because I mean, Gray last year he played against Leicester when he was at Leeds, so he'll have that experience.
He played in midfield, didn't he? I think as well.
He did. I think it was pivotal figure in the 3-1 win over Leicester at Ellen Road. So he scored the first one. I don't know if it was officially his because he took it.
It was given as an own goal, I think. Yeah,
took a huge deflection, but yeah. For me, Bentancur starts. I mean, you can make a case for Sarr not starting because I don't think he's had the greatest of pre-seasons, and the same with Maddison as well. It's just nice to have choice there because that's not always been the case, and it certainly wasn't the case, you know, towards in the second half of last season when Sarr, Maddison and Bissouma were struggling collectively. What was Tottenham's biggest strength for, say, 12 months ago, the midfield, that really did become their weakness, and Ange, you know, was struggling at times to try and get that right combination. So there's options there, and you know, if Gray, Bentancur take the chance, then who knows when Bissouma's next opportunity in the team will come. Yeah,
I wonder whether it might be. He really likes Sarr's energy and fitness levels as well as his obvious ability. But I do wonder whether it might be Bentancur, Gray and Maddison on this occasion. Whether Gray provides a little bit of cover for Bentancur fitness-wise as well. And he can play the 6 role at times. Or even if Gray does start in the 6 role and Bentancur is an 8, it could work that way. But like you say, loads of options now. And for Bissouma, I think he's going to be one to keep an eye on in the next couple of weeks. You know, he is a player that fits when he's on form. He fits the system so well, and it all works around him. But if Postecoglou can't trust him anymore, and we've said before, he hasn't played more than 45 minutes in any match in pre-season. I almost asked about that yesterday at the press conference, and I kind of thought, it's kind of not the time, you know. It's almost saying like, is there something else that's not right? It was like, I think we've kind of got the main line on Bissouma, but yeah, he's definitely one to watch, and I wonder whether it might accelerate the need for another number 6. But yeah, just really daft thing to do.
One transfer outgoing that is going to happen very soon from Tottenham Hotspur Stadium is Jamie Donnelly heading out on loan to Leyton Orient. First taste of, you know, regular senior football. You know, on a consistent basis, he's made 4 senior appearances for Spurs. Minutes probably in total what, 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes maybe max, because he's been coming on at the end of games. So I think this is a loan move which will do in the world of good, because he's quite clearly too good to be playing in Premier League 2, and then there's a number of options ahead of him when it comes to the Premier League squad. So, yeah, I think Orient as well, good choice. Spurs have had that relationship with the club before. Harry Kane went there, had a really good loan spell. Ryan Mason there as well, was it? At the same time as Kane?
I think it was.
Someone
I think
else?
it was. I feel like Ryan Mason went to a few. Ryan Mason went abroad at one point as well on loan.
Yeah. I think it's
Tom Carroll. Maybe Tom Carroll went to Leyton Orient.
It might have been Tom Carroll.
Yeah.
I think it's a good one. I saw some questioning yesterday why you're sending him to the bottom of League One. It's like it's only been one game. They lost the first game. There could be a really good season at Brisbane Road. But I think the most important thing, amid interest from Championship and League One, he just needs to be playing regularly. I don't think it matters about sending him to the Championship. It's a better level. He just needs to play regularly, and that was the case with Alfie Devine last season. Look how well he did at Port Vale in the first 6 months of the season. Key to them going quite far in the Carabao Cup as well. I think it was the quarterfinals they got to, or maybe the round before, and then he scored the winner in one of the games at Mansfield, and then you saw him make the step up to Plymouth. Didn't quite happen for him there because I think Ian Foster, who we knew from England under 19s or England under 20s, he was only in the job for a couple of months or so he got sacked, and then Devine all of a sudden he's on the bench getting minutes here and there. But yeah, I think he's going to get regular minutes, isn't he, Jamie Donnelly at Leyton Orient? And yeah, that's only going to bode well for him going forward.
Yeah, Ryan Mason, almost, if you squint, he went to Leyton Orient, but technically it was Lorient he went to, so it is L Orient.
So it was Tom Carroll at the same time.
I think it was Tom Carroll, right. But yeah, we were we kind of got there together in a way. You said Leyton Orient, but it was kind of not, and I said he went abroad, and I've just looked up. He never actually played for their first team either, Lorient. He played for their B side. He also went to Millwall, Doncaster Rovers, and Yeovil Town and Swindon. Little Ryan Mason history there. But Jamie Donnelly, I think it's a really good move. There's always this classic kind of response to when a player goes to League One. It's always like, oh, he's way better than that. And it's like, no, that's not how you do it. You pick the loan where he'll get the most developmental minutes. That's the one you pick. And at Orient, it feels like there's a need for him in there as a kind of a passing, attacking midfielder. He will get lots of time on the ball. He'll get lots of experience of just kind of a physical league as well and everything. It's an old cliche, but these young players, of course, they need to experience what it's like in the rough and tumble and physicality of men's football. And as you said, you could look at it as 6 months, reassess it in January, and if he clearly is too good for that level, then they'll step him up again to the next level, to a Championship. But yeah, I think it's terrific for him. New contracting coming as well. He'll get the new deal. I think it bumps another year onto his deal, and I'd imagine it'll be an improved deal as well because of everything he's done over the last 12 months. Brilliant season for the under-21s. Brilliant that he got the chance with the first team. I mean, he came off against City, Newcastle and Brentford, I think it was, in the Premier League, Burnley in the FA Cup. He's had a terrific season in his development and did very well on the tour as well as a left back. It's just incredible, some of the performances he was putting in a completely alien position to him. And there were loads of clubs lining up for the Championship and League One to get him, and Orient managed to do it. And relatively local as well, which is something people discount sometimes, I think, when they talk about a loan move. Sometimes it's good for players maybe to get away to a newer environment. Sometimes for them it's just easier just to still be around and be close to the club and everything like that. And this will work nicely for him. I think Orient being quite local, I think they're going to have a few extra kind of Spurs fans keeping an eye on this season as well to see how Jamie does, because I think he's going to absolutely smash it. I'm very excited kind of for him. And, you mentioned a certain Harry Kane. It's following in that path, and he still is only 19 as well. I can understand why some people might want him in and around the squad, but I think personally you can get away with letting Jamie go, get some proper minutes, get some proper experience and development. Probably, like you say, Alfie Devine heads off. I saw Sheffield Wednesday linked with him today as well. Ashley Phillips would imagine would be able to go off. I think you keep Will Lancashire. That seems to be the current feeling, that he's going to stick around, because then I think you can give him minutes in like the European games at certain points as well. And let's be honest, it's not going to be the entire next 6 months that Solanke and Richarlison are going to be available all the time. This is Spurs. It doesn't work like that. So no, for Jamie Donnelly, I think it's a really clever move. It's the worst. I mean, we saw it with Dane Scarlett last season. You send them to a team that's going to do well, play nice football, all of that, and you think, oh, it's a perfect fit. But then you don't take into account that, but if they're playing really well, then that young player is not going to get the minutes they need. And Dane had to come back. And they've had a few, it doesn't always work even lower down. I mean, Niall John, was it Charlton he went to?
Didn't even play a minute, did he?
No, not a single minute. So it's so crucial that you pick the right level, the right club. And if that means maybe a level down than you think that they're good at, that's not the worst thing at all. If he finds the football that little bit easier, but the physical side is the thing he adapts to, then that's great. It allows him to adapt to the physical side while being comfortable with the other aspects of it. And then you step him up to the next level. So, good move. New contract as well to tie him down for that a little bit longer. I think we might get that today, that announcement. Hopefully, but if not tomorrow, but I think maybe today.
Yeah, this week we've also seen Dane Scarlett head out on loan. He's gone to Oxford United in the Championship, and again, that looks a decent move for the player. Another crack at the Championships. It just didn't happen for him during his time at Ipswich. I think he was 12 substitute appearances in all competitions. I imagine he's still qualified for a medal for coming up, though, to the Premier League. Whether or not he got that.
I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, maybe.
Whether or not he got that, I don't know. But just looking at Oxford and their style of play, I think it looks to be a loan that's going to suit Spurs down to the ground, because Des Buckingham, who's Oxford head coach, his philosophy is very similar to Ange, as in attacking football, pressing high. And he said in his interview with the club that Dane's basically got the attributes that's going to help the team both on and off the ball. And Dane's promised goals as well, he said in his interview. So hopefully he'll be able to deliver. And Oxford did score quite a lot towards the back end of last season. Didn't they? Had a run of 3 games when they scored 13 goals in total. So maybe a debut tonight's their away at Coventry City. What'll be a tough game, but as long as Dane gets, there's regular minutes in the Championship, which just wasn't the case last season, then fingers crossed that will be a good loan for him as well.
It's about those goals. It's just about the goals. I think he's now at that stage after a couple of loans. When you're a young player, you can kind of maybe, you have a couple of excuses. It's like, okay, they're a young player, they're adjusting to a new level, or the physicality of the men's game, like we said. But ultimately, a striker is going to be judged on goals, especially one like Dane. He's not like a big target man. That's not what he is. He is going to be judged on his finishing and his goals. And I'm not saying there's like masses of pressure on him, and he's still only 20.
Yeah, 20, I think he's 20 now.
But he does need to start showing that he can score goals as a kind of a senior professional. So yeah, I really hope this one works out for him. Summer hasn't probably been the greatest for him at Spurs. I think he'd fallen behind Will Lancashire in the pecking order. Him and Alejo Valise, they've both got to go off now and just kind of almost prove to themselves as much as Postecoglou in the club, because especially with Dane, there was so much buzz about him. So many managers have spoken so highly. I mean, I still go back to Mourinho saying that he would be in like the England World Cup squad. I think it was for the next World Cup, wasn't it? A couple of years back, he said that. So yeah, he's got 2 years to get that to become a thing. But who knows? He's got the ability, and he is a terrific finisher. That's what they say within the club. But we've got to see that in matches now. And I really do hope for the best for him as well. It's our loan roundup that we do each week is starting to build quite nicely now. The amount of players, I'm not actually sure how many it is, but there's quite a few have already gone out the door.
Yeah, because Brian Hill, he played last night for Girona away at Real Betis. He started. Valise, Matthew Craig as well. Yeah. Another one, Pierre-Emile Højbjerg. He's
technically yes,
on loan at Marseille. So yeah, that loan roundup is going to grow and grow. I think for Dane, I agree with you. It's about getting those goals. He's He's always seems to have done really well when he's away on England international duty for the 19s or the 20s, whoever he's been playing for, but he needs to do it at club football now. Right, before we call it a day on today's podcast, as you know, the brand new Premier League season starts this evening at Old Trafford when Manchester United take on Fulham. We've decided to do our 24-25 season predictions, and we'll either look back in May at how good they were or how bad they were. So what we're going to do, Premier League top 6, bottom 3, and then Europa League, FA Cup and League Cup as well, because Spurs are involved in those. So do you want to kick us off, Ali? Premier League bottom 3, who are you going for?
I should say, you mentioned there, we decided we were going to do this. This is very much a Rob Guest decision, executive decision, because in his words, we can show everyone how my predictions were right. No pressure on your predictions.
Well, I did get Villa Champions League right last season, and they did tip Ipswich to win promotion. So there you go.
Okay, all right. So we're going for bottom 3 first, aren't we?
Yeah.
Okay, well, you see, this is a bit of a complicated one because of the potential points deductions. There's a few that could suddenly be hammered. Obviously, your club, Everton, could be one of them as well. I haven't put them in the bottom 3. I toyed with it, but I just think they might have enough to keep out of it. So my current bottom 3 are, I've gone for Leicester, Ipswich, Forest bottom. So going that way around, that's what I've gone for. But I think that's because of Leicester and Forest, I think, points wise, because I don't think they, whereas Everton, I think if they lose points, deducted points, I think they can handle that, whereas I don't think Leicester and Forest would be able to deal with that.
Yeah, I've gone Southampton bottom. I think their style of play is going to leave them open. I think they could be like severely punished by some of the Premier League's best teams, but who knows how they'll fare. So I've gone Saints bottom, Leicester 19th, Ipswich 18th. I think it'll be between Ipswich and Brentford for the last relegation place, but I think Brentford will probably just have enough. Yeah.
I do wonder how Bournemouth will do without Solanke. I think that's a big loss for them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think there might be a few teams who'll be in and around there. Forest as well, but Nuno's got that experience of the Premier League. Who knows? Who knows who'll be there? Top 6 now then.
Top 6 again, very much on potential points deductions. I've currently got Man City winning it again. I just think they're so strong, and I think they'll want to go for is it 5 in a row or is it 5?
Yeah, it'll be 5 in a row if they win it.
Yeah, and I think that's weirdly kind of a big motivating factor. I think that just sends such a ridiculous message to football and everything. But there is the points thing. So I'm putting a little asterisk next to Man City that, you know, if they, I mean, who knows some of the things they've been talking about. They've been talking about potential relegations and things like that, isn't there? So we'll have to see what comes of that. But as it is, I've got City top. I've got that team down the road in second, just because I think they're there or thereabouts in the last couple of seasons, and their squad is good. It's a good squad. Maybe it needs a bit more firepower, but they just seem to get through games, and that's the sign of a team that is going to be up there. Although, quick question: if Arsenal don't win the title, this was a topic at the football tournament last night that we were playing at. If Arsenal don't win the title this season, have they failed?
Probably, because they've been that close the past 2 seasons, and they've had it in the hands, really.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like they've been behind and, you know, almost catching City. For large parts of the season, they've been, you know, the main team topping the table, and then they've just fallen away. So, yeah, maybe. Yeah.
It's a tough one. I mean, City are huge. They're such a big kind of beast to try and get out of the way. But yeah, I think maybe third year, if you can't do it. And like you say, have been in the driving seat a fair few times as well. So I'm gone for Spurs in third place. I've just got this feeling that with the changes at Liverpool, changing kind of the manager with Slot going in there, United are a bit of a funny side. I think they spend big, but it doesn't really mean much. Villa, I think, are probably I'm gonna say this, and then I've changed my order that I've got them in anyway. But Villa, I think, are probably going to be pushing hard again. But can they sustain what they did last season? We'll see with Champions League. Champions League football, as we well know, is a big drain on what you do in the Premier League when you first kind of come back into it. So I'm going with Spurs. I think people are kind of underrating what Postecoglou's kind of building there. I think they'll start the season maybe a little slower, but I think they're going to build real momentum because the team isn't going to drop as much in terms of quality because the amount of players he can now bring in if there's an injury is going to completely change what they were like last year. Whereas last year started off superbly and kind of dipped because they didn't have that quality. And I think they've got that quality now, even just up front. To have Solanke and Richarlison, I should mention on Richarlison, he said yesterday, currently feeling no effects of his injury in training, which is great. So to have that ability in a game, if Solanke's maybe not firing, to bring Richarlison, who we know can score goals, I do think that's going to help them. And I think they're going to be better this season than people expect. I mean, last season, people had them mid-table getting relegated when Kane left and they finished 5th. So I think this year, everyone's putting them around 5th or 6th. I think they're going to be slightly better than that. I've gone for Liverpool in 4th. Despite all that talk about Villa, I just looked at my little list I've made and put Liverpool in 4th. I think maybe just because, again, of the quality they've got. I've gone Villa 5th and I've gone Man U 6th.
Right. Yeah, I've got Man U 6 as well.
Yep.
I think it might be between them and Villa for 6th spot. And who knows with United? You don't know what you're going to get with them season after season at the moment. So, yeah, United 6. I've got Newcastle 5th.
I toyed with Newcastle.
Yeah.
I did wonder if they'll have a better season this time around without because they haven't got European football, have they, to worry about? So
no Europe. A few decent signings. Tonali coming back from the ban's going to be effectively like a brand new signing because they saw very little of him last season. And you know, when you've got a player like Alexander Isak up front, Anthony Gordon was fantastic last season. I think they'll have a strong year. 4th have gone Spurs. I think it'll be another decent year. There'll be progress, but it's about, you know, trying to catch up to the other 3 towards the top, and it's just about whittling down those points difference. The squad's certainly much better than last season, much more depth there, but they've got to try and balance European football with it now, and then hopefully a couple of other cup runs would be nice because it was 2 games in the FA Cup, 1 game in the League Cup last year, but the squad's there for that now. A couple more additions would be nice. We'll have to wait and see what happens on that. Got Liverpool 3rd. I know a lot.
Keep them out of your top 6.
No, well, you don't know who's winning the league on my predictions. So.
Oh no!
no,
you can't put Everton top.
Well, it's a team that's got 7 letters in the name, and there's an E and an R in there.
Yes, I know who it's going to be, but go on.
Yeah, I think Liverpool will be all right. I know they've not really signed anyone this summer, but I think the football and the slot plays, I think there's a good team there already, and I think Cody Gakpo, I know it's not really worked for him at Liverpool yet, but he's had a good summer at the Euros. Slot, fellow Dutchman, could bring out the best in him. I think they'll be all right. I think they'll be top 4. City 2nd. It's going to be so hard to, you know, try and keep up with the momentum year after year and try and, you know, make it 5 in the row. But there's going to be 1 year when it doesn't happen for them. And I think it might be this year. And who knows what's going to happen with all the charges and that, whether there's a points deduction or something more significant. And then, the other team in North London first, they're getting there, they're improving. I think they might do it.
Well, I mean, I guess technically my one, I did have an asterisk next to Man City. So if they do get the points deduction, then I guess that second team would have to jump up. But then I guess that would put Spurs 2nd in my league. So that worked. Yeah, the City stuff is going to be fascinating because it could have such a huge impact on not only the Premier League for now, but kind of where it goes from that. Because who knows, if it was as big as some people suggesting they got relegated, that's a very different Premier League product without them in it. What does it mean for Guardiola? Some of those stars, they all head off. Even with a massive points deduction, they might think, yeah, I'm not being a part of all of that. It suddenly changes the face of how the top of the Premier League has looked.
Yeah, definitely. I saw some joking on Twitter the other day. City will be charged, but it'll be Everton who will end up getting a points deduction for them. But,
yeah, well, you could take half of them. That'd be nice. Just be kind, be generous.
Right, Europa League now. How do you think Spurs will fare in this? I mean, maybe not the Champions League that some fans want, but Europa League's a good competition, and Spurs have got to have a decent chance of winning this competition.
I'm going to go for them winning it. I am. Yeah. I know that's probably jinxing them, but to be a different format, to not have the Champions League teams dropping down, it's in essence, it should be on paper easier for the bigger teams to progress through the competition. It should be. And we'll see. I think we've said this before. We're going to have a lot of discussions over lineups and people wanting Spurs to play their strongest lineup in every competition. It's like that's not the whole point of improving the quality is that they can rotate much easier and not drop the quality. So I think the Europa League squad will still be a strong one. It might just not be the one you see in a Premier League week in, week out until it starts to reach the kind of the knockout stage, and then it becomes a little bit more of a blend. But yeah, I'd go with Spurs. I mean, maybe a Spurs Postecoglou and Mourinho final. Oh, that would be something.
It would. Yeah, I've got Spurs to win it as well. San Mamés Stadium in Bilbao. It's going to be interesting, the league phase, because Spurs looking like they are going to be in pot one, and you play two teams from pot one. So there's like Roma, Lazio. I think Rangers are going to be in there now. Who else? Real Sociedad, they were a really good team as well. So you just want a kind draw in terms of those 8 league fixtures, because there'll still be some decent teams in pot 2, 3, and 4 as well. Yeah, I think they can have a really good crack at Europe. Ange will be gunning for it as well. So he's desperate to win trophies. I mean, Ange is a winner. Wherever he's been, he's always won silverware, and fingers crossed that there will be some coming back to Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in May. Yeah, I think they'll do well in Europe. Yeah, I've got them to win it. FA Cup and League Cup then?
In my mind, in my dreams, maybe, I think Spurs will have a good old run at the FA Cup. I think League Cup, that's the kind of one I could maybe see Slot winning in his first year at Liverpool. Liverpool would normally go quite strong in that. I think they change it up to begin with, but the team gets stronger and stronger as that goes on. So maybe Liverpool win the League Cup and Spurs can claim the FA Cup, and it becomes a season with a little bit of silverware. That would be lovely. And look, it's all hopes at the moment because it's been so long since Spurs won any form of silverware. But I do think they're the competitions that they can really have a bit of a crack at.
Yeah, I think if they're going to go far in one of those two cups, it'll be the FA Cup. I think there'll be a bit more rotation in the League Cup, and then again, it's just got to depend on the draw because, City coming up in the 4th round last year, Fulham away in the 2nd round of the Carabao Cup when you could have been getting teams in League 1 or League 2. Yeah. It doesn't always, go the way you want it in those cup draws.
They go around further in the League Cup this time, though, don't they? They've already progressed further.
Yeah, the progress. Without even playing in it. So, yeah, I've gone Newcastle to win the League Cup.
It's not a bad shout.
They went close the other year when they lost to United in the final. They made progress under Eddie Howe. I think they'll have a good run in the League Cup and win it. City are bound to win something, so I've got them down to win the FA Cup. But I think Spurs can get to the final 4 maybe, but again, all dependent on the draw.
Yeah, I'd be happy with 1 trophy. I must admit, I don't want to be greedy. I know I've said 2, but just one would be amazing. that and top 3-4 finish, I think would be huge progress on what's come before. So yeah, I would take that definitely.
Yeah, just the season of progress. That's what there needs to be, good runs in those competitions, maybe some silverwares. I mean, the way they finished last season, weren't good at all those, big defeats at Newcastle and then lost at Liverpool when they were 4-0 down after, I don't know, what was it, half an hour or something like that again. Yeah, but they're building a decent squad, bit more depth there. I think Spurs can have a good season, and hopefully on the podcast in May we can look back at these predictions and see how right we were, or maybe how far off we were. I don't know.
What would you still like them to bring in now they've brought in another attacking midfielder / winger,
centre back, and if they can, cover for a doggy and Destiny a doggy alternative. Really, I think that's what they probably lack there. Davis has filled in well at left back, but he doesn't bring the same in the final third as a doggy. And I think with Ashley Phillips likely to head out on loan, there needs to be a bit more cover at centre back, even though Davis can fill in there if required. So I'd probably say those are the two positions, and who knows, maybe another midfielder, but I think there's already some decent cover there.
Yeah, I think if they could get a centre back that also covers left back,
yeah,
that would be brilliant. And then that would allow you maybe to look at another number 6, depending on what happens with Bissouma, or even regardless of that. I would imagine you'd think the number 8 slots, there's so many players that can now play there, that would almost be just kind of packing it over, kind of an overload there. I think he is going to need a lot of them over the course of the season, but he's got so many players that can play in those roles. I do wonder whether the 6 is the one that's not quite as covered as much. But, even as we just said, you've still got Bentancur, Gray and Bissouma can all play in the role. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see. But I still think at least 1 or 2 more would be great. And with 2 weeks left, you'd think there's time. But I think there's a real onus on them now getting players out as well. I mean, how much they spent? I was just trying to work that out in my head.
I think someone probably said about 140 million, something around there. So it's what, 65 on Solanke if all add-ons, are met. Gray, what was he, 35, 40?
Gray was 25 plus Roden. So it's whether you want to use the initial base figure or the overall package, I suppose.
Yeah. Odobert, 25 going up to 30.
Yeah.
Werner on loan. Yang, what was he?
Oh, it's gone out of my head. Was it 10, 12? I'm trying to remember now. I really shouldn't have asked the question without knowing the answer, should I?
Bergvall, similar fee, but would that then go on last season's?
I think that's technically last season. Is anyone just very quickly trying to look up a figure here for Yang? I can't find. I think you're right about. I think 140. I saw that as well, and it kind of made sense.
I don't know who spent the most amount of money this summer, because City and Liverpool have been quiet. Arsenal have only got Calafiore, so maybe United, have they spent the most? Might be United or Spurs.
Could be. It could be. With Yang, I remember this now. It was in the media over that side. In Korea, it was, they were saying around potentially 3 to 4 million.
Okay.
But then we never really found out. It was kind of one of those that very much has remained undisclosed, I think. But yeah, they it's one of those. They've spent money. I'm sure the argument maybe more comes, is it on the players that people wanted? People wanted these kind of bigger names, or is it players that just fit the system exactly how Postecoglou wants, or is it ones with the potential? There's so many. We don't really know. That's the problem. Until last season, people were moaning about Van de Ven being the cheap option rather than the Tapsoba, Vicario being a cheap option rather than Raya. And there were so many kind of question marks over various signings, and they ended up being superb. That's not to say that's definitely going to be the case again this season, but it is kind of a bit of, we have to wait and see exactly how they fit into the group.
Yeah, I mean, some people usually judge how good you've done in the transfer market on how many signings you've brought in or how much you've spent, but it's about spending it right. You don't have to spend millions. You just need to bring in the right players. And it looks like Spurs have done that this season. I mean, go back 5 years, Tongi Ndombele, Giovanni Lo Celso, a lot of money there. Same with Sessegnon as well. Didn't work out. Yeah.
That summer was just like, wow. That was an absolute write-off of a summer, isn't it? It really was. I agree. It's one of those where we all have names and stuff like people want. I know there was a lot of buzz about people wanting Chiesa, even though there wasn't really anything to it. And it's a bit like, I do wonder sometimes whether names become a bigger thing than the actual fit of a player or the player's ability, but current levels and things like that, and how they'd fit in the Postecoglou system. I'm chucking myself in this as well. There might be players that I haven't seen play for a year or two, and I might have remembered the last time I saw them, oh, they're fantastic, what a talent, get them in kind of thing. And you don't know exactly what they've been like on a week in, week out basis. And that applies to a lot of players as well. I think with Italian, I think there's still going to be so many Italian links that aren't really much to them just because of the kind of, I guess, the Fabio Paratici links and consultancy element that's been there in the past. But I still think there's another one, maybe two to come in the next couple of weeks.
Right, we'll leave that there for today's latest episode of Golden Guest Talk Tottenham. We'll be back early next week to reflect on the Leicester City game, which takes place 8 o'clock at the King Power Stadium on Monday evening. So in the meantime, just keep with us at football.london for all your latest Tottenham news. To get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/goldguest. Our link will also give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan. There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the podcast episode description box.